Okay, everyone. So we'll start today's meeting differently than we usually do so that Cynthia can talk about her topic and then we can let her go and we can finish our normal work. Of course, she's welcome to stay with us through the whole meeting and contribute as she would like. But I asked her to join the meeting to talk about her document template for tracking your work. And I'm going to leave the explanation of that and all the details to her. So let's give her our full attention and see what we can get from this.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so thanks to Mike for inviting me for recording's sake. Today is June 30th, 2022. So hopefully whenever you watch this, nothing has really changed. But first, I actually wanted to let everyone know kind of how to find this. If you go to your shared drive, you should see a support shared drive. From there, we do have this folder that is all about like career development, which obviously includes promotion and performance docs as well. So in here, we have the track your work template right here. So I created this template quite a while back because I heard from a lot of engineers that they, had difficulty kind of really tracking their work. And there's a few reasons why you would want to do this. It mostly came out from people talking about promotions, but if you think about it, it's also really helpful for when you're doing either your mid-year or your end-of-year performance review, because obviously you want to highlight the work that you've done for your manager. They are probably familiar with some of it, but honestly, we're also productive and prolific that they're not going to know everything. So they're going to need reminders as well. And it's also a really great way for people to, kind of look back and reflect on like, okay, well, what have you gotten done? You've probably gotten more done than you think in any given year, I bet you. So the other thing I want to, say about this is that, so this was different, very different from a promotion document in the sense that this was meant as almost kind of like, for lack of better term, a dumping ground. It was really a way for people to just, throw things in really quickly. It doesn't have to be something really big, really significant, just anything you might even want to make a note of for yourself for later. And it could be something really small. So the idea is you add anything you want to do. So if you're inclined to make a note of it, if you ever think, hey, that's kind of cool, or that's nice of them to say, why not make a note of it? So the doc provides some, suggested, I see someone has accidentally used this for their own. Well, nice. I mean, that's kind of cool. You can see an example of what someone has decided to start putting in here. I'll make sure to fork this and clean it up so that it's the original template again. A lot of these categories are based on our job description as well as the promotion documents. But again, these are all just, suggested. They're not necessarily ones that you might want to keep. Totally up to you how you want to change this or, categorize your work. And for some things like docs, you might even just want to put in a search link for you to find them all later. You don't have to put them all in here. So it's really up to you how you want to do this. I have there's quite a bit of intro text because it does include some suggestions on how you might start filling this in, especially for some people, they really struggle with the idea that like, oh, well, I didn't do anything that was significant or noteworthy this week. And I'm like, you probably did, but you might not think it's noteworthy. So I'm like, okay, well, instead of thinking about whether something is noteworthy and that you have nothing to add, why not look at the best of the week, right? So I know that a lot of people in this group, but across support, use the one-on-one issue generator. You can use that. You can just, use Zendesk or searches or however you want to do it. You look at what you did in the past week, such as solve tickets, issues, that sort of thing. Pick the best of that week. So it doesn't have to be, again, like something you think is super important or significant. Just look at what you did in the last week and pick one thing, and that'll help you, populate something like this. And I usually recommend 30 minutes a week. You may not take all of that time, but it's also helpful to have that time set aside. The one other thing you'll notice about this doc is that it oddly goes from November to October, but if you think of when we do our end of year review, that will make a lot more sense. But again, up to you. You can do it by calendar year. I used to do it by calendar year. I've only actually just started doing it on the performance review cadence personally. So that's, again, this is what the doc is about. But if you can use anything you want. A lot of people use like their other apps. You might use a wiki. Some people prefer to use issues. Really, the idea was this was a low barrier way for people to get started if they didn't have anything already, and to get ideas. And just very quickly, I'll show you kind of what I mean by like, it doesn't need to be organized. You can see like, this is just like a listing of a whole bunch of things. And there are a couple of sections that have, sub examples or whatever, but like, honestly, so much of it was just like, okay, I'm just going to throw it in here. It is not very well organized, but it will come later, right? Like once I actually need to do a performance review doc or a promotion document or whatever it is, then I have stuff to choose from. It's not like I'm trying to start from scratch, which is always a lot harder than doing a little bit every week. The one other thing I'll note is that usually the way that I fill out the values alignment section is that I will put something into one of the categories above it if I can. If it doesn't fit in one of those categories, then I'll usually try to fit it somewhere in the value section, which means that the value section is almost a little bit of a miscellaneous section. But again, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And again, it's up to you if you want to repeat stuff that you think really exemplifies any of these values that you may have put above or anything like that. And then there's Slack screenshots, which, yes, it's just a section that really is about like, okay, our Slack messages disappear after 90 days. So we recommend taking Slack screenshots. I think I'm at 267 or something like that. But if you look at mine, you'll see that like often I'll put a reference to which Slack screenshot is in there. Some people will just put it right in the doc, but personally, I prefer not having all those screenshots in the doc itself and putting it all the way at the bottom. But again, totally up to you. So I think that's it. I've talked a lot in the last few minutes. So any questions, ideas, anything that I missed?
I'm kind of trying to figure out how to determine what's worthy of putting into a document such as this one and what's not. How do you, gone about deciding what's worthy of making it into the document?
Yeah, like I said, a lot of people do struggle with that. And so that's why I honestly often recommend don't even think about whether it's like worthy, but more like if you are taking a bit of time every week, pick whatever you think is best from the past week. And it could be something really small or like something bigger. A really good example that I have been using recently is that Orit, who is one of the product managers actually just wrote kind of a random comment in the off channel a few weeks back, and she said something like, when she Googles for an Okta skim example, she'll find my video. And I'm just like, hey, that's really cool. I mean, again, it's something that I did quite a long time ago. And so it's not actually even something, and I don't, like, she didn't mention whether it was super helpful or anything like that, just the fact that she found my video in the Google search results, right? So even though it wasn't something that I specifically did, I made a note of it just because it was kind of neat that she actually mentioned it. So yeah, just pick something from the last week, maybe more than one if you think of more than one thing. But again, if you're struggling, if you used a one-on-one issue generator, that's a great way to just be like, okay, here are all the things that the one-on-one issue has for the last week. Pick the best thing out of there.
That's fair. Yeah, thank you.
I imagine what will happen is when you get to mid-year review or end of year review, if you've been doing this for the whole year, you'll have a big long list like you saw in her sample, right? And you may use a tiny bit out of there, but you don't have to search everywhere and into the depths of your memory to find what those things are. You've got one document, you can sort of skim through and go, yeah, these things really show what I did this year. These are the things I was proud of. So you can pull them out of there. So the dumping ground image is a good one to me. It just says, just put things in there that might possibly be useful later. It's better to have way too much in the document than too little.
Yeah, and again, it's just a matter of like, if you had to search for everything from the last year right now, you would probably be spending way more time doing it than looking through a list of things that you've picked out from the last year. And you can occasionally go through it and be like, okay, I really don't think this is worth keeping. I would like, interestingly, so I don't actually use a one-on-one issue generator weekly. I use it quarterly. And that's still a lot. Like, I will tell you right now, I do not go through the list of tickets or anything like that for the quarter. But it's a really good way for me to get the stats that I need. So I keep track of like the number of MRs and the weight of the MRs that I do every month, which the one-on-one issue generator will create. And then what I will also do is sometimes I'll look, I will use like the list of docs because that's not going to be, the number of tickets might be in the hundreds, but like docs, MRs, you're not going to be more than 100 or something like that. So it can be useful to generate, I find, to generate something like that monthly or quarterly as well, just to kind of help you as a reminder to kind of go through some of that in a little more detail. But again, you can always go through the doc and remove stuff, but it's always going to be harder to find things a year later than it is from a doc that is like a few pages long.
Yeah, that the whole thing makes sense about having to do this less yeah, I mean more frequently, but also not putting in a whole bunch of time into backtracking every single thing that you think is maybe helping in whatever you're going to be using this for. So yeah, both I think both comments are really useful. Having too much is really not a bad thing in this case, I think. So yeah, thank you both.
And again, I will say, like, just for a promotion document, I would not necessarily include it, but certainly for a performance review where it's mostly you and your manager, I will occasionally add things that are not necessarily what you would think of as significant and really impactful to the evaluation of the performance, but a couple of, just neat little examples of some of the kind of more almost fun things, like the example I shared earlier about or finding my video. So they're every so often, I'll include a couple of those sorts of things to share with my manager and be like, hey, this was just a cute little thing. It may not have much impact on the performance review, but I wanted to put it in there as kind of, I would put that sort of thing personally more in the one-on-one doc rather than a performance review or performance review doc. But again, it's just, like I say, it's just, I consider it kind of a highlight of a week. So, and I don't know, all the managers that I've had at least are happy to see that sort of thing. If you're happy about it, usually, your manager will be happy about it too.
Yep, I agree. Any more questions, comments? Looks like no. I will stop recording.